So good evening, everyone. I'm Stacy Garcia, and I am the Public and Cultural Diplomacy Officer of the Philippine Embassy to the United Kingdom and Northern Ireland. This is actually a very unique position, a job that they gave me, because although the position of a cultural officer has been in the embassy for quite some time, this is the first time that the department has given this position to someone under 35, because there, and it's something that it's something that I consider a challenge, but also something that's very exciting, because the world we live in has changed so much since the time the Vienna Convention was signed. It has changed so much such that governments now are not the only institutions responsible for conducting diplomacy, for bridging people. The moment when we had an explosion in media, in social media, in digital media for that matter, diplomacy has been democratized and it has been decentralized significantly. So as we hurtle towards the future, our diplomats, our ambassadors, our consuls, they are not the only ones responsible for representing the country, but that role has been also given to the citizens, to young people, to old people, to everyone of any kind of profession. And so our role has changed significantly. My role as a cultural diplomacy officer has changed immensely, because what I am tasked to do is not simply to organize activities, to organize performances of Philippine cultural groups, and to organize exhibits. But more importantly, it is to create networks. To create networks between Filipinos and second-generation Filipino-British individuals, between Filipinos, between Philippine citizens and British citizens, between different players in the Philippines and in the United Kingdom and Ireland. So the first two speakers gave a very comprehensive background on what the Philippines has been doing, what the Philippine government has been doing for that matter, in order to promote peace, in order to create an environment for peace. So right now, in my part, in my speech, I would like to focus on something a lot closer to my heart, and something that will allow us to see not only what government is doing, but what the average ordinary Filipino is doing in order to promote peace and to create this atmosphere of peace. And this is actually something that I draw a lot of purpose and meaning from in my work. I remember Mike asking me last night, "So do you like your work?" And so I had to tell him, "Oh, definitely. So far, it is the best job that I have, because it is a huge contrast to what my work was previously before joining government. Before, I used to build brands for private companies, for multinational corporations, and in effect to make private companies' businesses bigger and richer. That was challenging as well, but in my job in government, I think more than being challenging, it is purposeful and meaningful, because I am tasked to build the brand of the country and to tell the story of the Philippines to the world. So I'll show you one part of that story tonight, and I hope that after, when we come to the open forum, you will also be encouraged to ask more questions. And I'd like to start by sharing with you this very disturbing quote I read from one of the most disturbing books that I have come across. It is Jose Rizal's El Filibusterismo. It disturbed me so much that it actually jolted me to reality and inspired me to act and to go out of my way in order to meet a lot of people I never dreamt of working with. So I'll bring you to the last chapter of El Filibusterismo. A copy, by the way, is available at the British Library. So if you want to read the whole book, I encourage you to do so. But let me bring you to this last chapter. It is when the protagonist, Simon, was on his deathbed, and he was accompanied by a Filipino priest called Padre Florentino. And before he died, he uttered these last words. He said, "Where are the youth who will consecrate their golden hours, their illusions, their enthusiasm to the welfare of their native land? Where are the youth who will generously pour out their blood to wash away so much shame, so much crime, so much abomination?" So today, I would like to answer Jose Rizal and tell him that you need not look further, because that group of young people lives today, and they are they're doing so many things. They're connecting so many communities in order to lift up the Philippines to that place of honor and prestige, and in order to help connect the Philippines to the world. So I'd like to share with you what some young people in the Philippines have been up to and the communities that they've worked with. In the Department of Foreign Affairs, before I left for my stint here in London, we organized an activity. It was called Filipino Shopping 1300. 1300 being the zip code of the place where we had that particular bazaar. Now, we shortened Filipino shopping into fish because the target of that activity was to showcase Filipino brands that do not only give fish to the community, but that teach communities how to fish to make their own livelihood. Because that is a gap that we have been seeing in our communities. And being millennials, so impatient and so passionate about so many things, a lot of our homegrown brands decided that they will not wait any longer for any kind of, let's say, support from other bigger institutions, but they wanted to act immediately. One of the most inspiring organizations we came across is called the Spark Project. If you're familiar with Kickstarter, it's more or less a similar concept of crowdfunding. And this has been an organization that has spawned so many social enterprises and has been responsible in turning the Philippines into the Silicon Valley of social enterprises in the ASEAN. I bet that's something that many of us in this room have not read in the media, but it's something that we are definitely very proud of. I'll show you some of the brands that Spark Project has been able to launch, and I'll tell you more about the communities that they've worked with. I'd like to go first. I'd like to talk first about a brand from Mindanao. It's called Vesti. So a lot of us, when we think about Mindanao, we think about the conflict. We think about the chaos. We do not automatically think about the heritage of the people in terms of arts, in terms of design. But today and in the recent years, there has been an upsurge in the number of social enterprises and world-class Filipino brands from Mindanao. Vesti is a Mindanao-based brand, and it has worked with weaving communities in Mindanao. Its designer, Martha Rodriguez, she has worked closely with these communities, so closely, in fact, that she has traveled to places like Basilan, to places like South Cotabato, to places like Zamboanga, and has stayed with these communities to co-create these brands with those communities. Oh, sorry. So one of the communities she has worked with is the Tivoli community, and we are proud to have brought this brand to London for the first time. And no less than London Fashion Week. We were very happy about it because what we wanted to showcase wasn't only talent, but what we wanted to showcase was how young people like Martha are able to go out of their way to meet with these communities, to bring a synergy in terms of design and in terms of business, and to be able to promote the arts and culture of this community. As you know, many of these communities are actually vanishing rapidly every day. Another brand is Ibarra. which showcases Philippine watchmaking, another dying tradition. And they've actually brought a lot of new life into the Philippine watchmaking industry. It's something that a lot of people were very surprised to know about. But by promoting, by teaching skills, transferring technology, they have not only brought life back to this industry, but they have also promoted understanding between and among generations of watchmakers in the Philippines. And finally, this one is called Amami. Now, this tambourine jewelry industry was on the brink of extinction in the Philippines, and a lot of younger generations were uninterested to know about this, to learn the craft. But when Amami came into the scene, funded by the Spark Project, they were able to give a more lucrative business proposition to the artisans and to bring this kind of jewelry making not only outside of the Ilocos area, but even globally. These are only some of the few examples of successful brands that have really not only made a name for themselves globally, but have brought fresh attention into the Philippines' art and culture heritage and have gotten a lot of people, a lot of non-Filipinos asking more about Philippine culture, to understand Philippine identity, and to get to know better what Filipino values are all about, what the Philippines stands for. So we in the Philippine Embassy, we're very proud and we are very happy to support these kinds of brands and to support the efforts of young people, because our job right now is not only to represent the Philippines on the negotiating table, but to empower our people to become diplomats and ambassadors of the Philippine brand. So thank you so much.